people like to see that you're a regular guy and you drink. And even when I used to play in the tournaments with all the...
John Wayne was dying, and everyone around him knew it. The cancer that had already taken his lung and stomach was now taking everything else. The man once seen as the toughest figure in Hollywood was now 72 years old, frail, and reduced to barely 140 pounds. When people saw him, many could hardly hide their shock. Some stared with pity. Others lowered their voices and spoke gently, as if he had already slipped halfway into the afterlife. And that hurt John Wayne more than most people realized. He didn't want sympathy. He didn't want mournful faces or careful words. He didn't want to be treated like a fading memory while he was still breathing. For a man who had built his entire identity on strength, pride, and presence, pity felt unbearable. Then one day, Dean Martin came to visit. Dean walked into Duke's home, took one look at his old friend, and without missing a beat said, "Jesus, Duke, you look like hell. What happened? You stop eating beef?"
You must have crammed in a lot of living since our last picture. I got a 60-year-old saddle that looks better than you do.
For a moment, Wayne simply stared at him. Then he burst into laughter. Real laughter, deep, honest laughter that came from somewhere far beyond humor. It was the laughter of relief, because Dean Martin had given him something no one else had the courage to give. He gave him normalcy, no pity, no sadness, no fragile treatment. Just two old friends talking the way they always had. In that moment, John Wayne was no longer a dying man surrounded by sorrow. He was still Duke, and Dean knew that was exactly what his friend needed most. To understand why that final visit mattered so much, you have to understand who these two men were to each other. You also have to understand what it means to watch a legend slowly disappear. John Wayne and Dean Martin first became close in 1959 during the making of Rio Bravo. By then, Wayne was already larger than life, the face of the American Western, the symbol of rugged masculinity, the cowboy hero audiences believed could never be broken. Dean Martin, meanwhile, was trying to prove he was more than a singer, more than one half of Martin and Lewis, and more than a slick member of the Rat Pack. He wanted respect as a serious actor. Director Howard Hawks cast Dean as Dude, an alcoholic deputy fighting to reclaim his dignity. It was a demanding, dramatic role, far removed from Dean's smooth, playful public image. Wayne had doubts at first. He'd seen the comedy, the nightclub charm, the easygoing swagger, but he wasn't sure Dean could carry the emotional weight the part required. From the first days of filming, Wayne realized he had misjudged him. Dean brought vulnerability, pain, and raw honesty to the role. He wasn't pretending. He was believable. He was human. And everyone on set noticed it. Most of all, Duke noticed it. What began as professional respect soon became something rare in Hollywood. Real friendship. Not the kind built for cameras, premieres, and headlines. A genuine bond between two men who enjoyed each other's company, trusted one another, and understood the value of loyalty in a world full of performance. John Wayne had many friends in Hollywood, but very few he truly respected. Dean Martin was one of them. Duke admired something rare about Dean, his complete lack of pretension. Dean never tried to impress anyone. He didn't chase approval, didn't play political games, and never seemed interested in the endless vanity that surrounded Hollywood. He was simply Dean, cool, sharp-witted, talented, and almost effortlessly above the nonsense. Dean, in turn, appreciated something equally rare about John Wayne. Duke was direct. He said what he meant and meant what he said. He respected strength, honesty, and loyalty. Dean had earned that respect, and once Duke gave it, he didn't take it back easily.
My family is always first. I don't have fun all the time. I work. The only reason I work is to provide for my family.
The two men worked together again in 1970 on The Undefeated, and their friendship only deepened. They weren't inseparable, nor were they the sort to call each other every week. But whenever they crossed paths, at an awards show, a party, a studio lot, or through an unexpected phone call, they picked up exactly where they had left off. Some friendships need constant maintenance. Theirs did not. It was built on mutual understanding. By 1979, both men had weathered their share of private storms. Dean Martin was facing the pressures that come with aging in an industry obsessed with youth.
I knew all of his secrets and he knew all of mine. And to this day, his kids say to me, "Come on, Auntie Maureen, you know more about Dad than anybody else."
His marriage had ended, his drinking had become heavier, and the effortless charm the public saw often masked a quieter fatigue behind the scenes. But Duke's burden was far heavier. Wayne had first been diagnosed with lung cancer in 1964. Surgeons removed his left lung and several ribs in a grueling operation. Against the odds, he survived and appeared to recover. For the next 15 years, he kept working, kept filming, and kept presenting himself to the world as indestructible. He remained an icon the Duke audiences believed could never fall. Then, in 1978, the cancer returned. This time, it was in his stomach. In January 1979, Wayne underwent radical surgery to remove it. The procedure was devastating. He lost enormous amounts of weight. His once commanding 6'4" frame, which had often carried more than 220 pounds, shrank to barely 140. Clothes hung from him. His broad face had become gaunt and hollow. The famous swagger that once announced his presence from across a room had been replaced by slow, measured steps of a man in pain. To many, he looked like a ghost of himself.
He was perhaps he was my dearest friend and my best friend.
But John Wayne was not ready to surrender. He was stubborn to the core. Pride ran through him like blood, and in his mind, John Wayne did not quit. So even while visibly failing, he kept making appearances. He wanted the public, and perhaps himself, to believe he was still standing, still fighting, still Duke. On April 9th, 1979, he appeared at the Academy Awards to present the Best Picture Award. It was meant to be a triumphant image, a Hollywood titan taking the stage one more time. Instead, it became something far more emotional. When Wayne walked out, the audience audibly gasped. Some people reportedly began crying before he even spoke. He was shockingly thin, frail, and clearly gravely ill. He moved carefully. His once thunderous voice was weakened. Yet he stood beneath the lights, smiled, and carried out the duty with every ounce of dignity he had left. The room rose to its feet. The standing ovation was not only for a presenter, it was for a man everyone understood they might never see again. Backstage, people crowded around him. Actors, executives, crew members, old friends. Everyone wanted a moment. They praised his courage. They told him he was an inspiration. They promised he would always be remembered. Some embraced him gently as if he might break in their arms. Others spoke through tears. Wayne thanked them all politely. He smiled. He nodded. He played the role expected of him. But inside, another kind of pain was setting in. He was being mourned while still alive. He was being pitied in real time. He was being treated not as a man still fighting, but as a memory already fading. He appreciated their kindness. He truly did. Yet what he wanted more than sympathy, more than applause, more than emotional speeches, was something much simpler. He wanted someone to talk to him like nothing had changed. He wanted someone to treat him like he wasn't dying. He wanted someone to treat him like he was still Duke, still the hard-headed, ornery force of nature who took nothing from anybody and bowed to no one. Not a patient, not a tragedy, not a man to be handled with delicate gloves, just Duke. A few weeks after the Academy Awards, Dean Martin called Wayne's house. Dean had seen the same heartbreaking image the rest of the world had seen that night, a once towering legend now visibly nearing the end. He understood what others understood, but he also understood something many of them did not. John Wayne didn't need another person mourning him. He needed a friend. Dean didn't call to ask how Duke was feeling. He didn't offer prayers, sympathy, or solemn words. Instead, he said, "Duke, I'm coming by tomorrow. Make sure you're home and not dying or anything inconvenient like that." From another room, Wayne's daughter heard something she hadn't heard in far too long. Her father laughed, not a polite chuckle, a real laugh, full-bodied and alive. She could hardly believe it. Duke hadn't truly laughed in weeks. The next day, Dean arrived at Wayne's home in Newport Beach. The family was nervous. They had seen how visits often affected him. Even short conversations drained what little strength he had left. Guests meant effort. Guests meant Duke forcing himself to stand taller, speak stronger, pretend he wasn't fading. They worried Dean's visit might take more than it gave. Dean rang the bell. Wayne's daughter answered. Her eyes carried the exhaustion of someone watching a loved one slip away. She began softly, "Mr. Martin, thank you for coming. My father is..." "Awake?" Dean cut in. "Yes, but he's very weak." "Then let's not waste time. Where is he?" Without ceremony, Dean stepped inside and moved through the house. He found Duke seated in the living room, wrapped in a robe that once fit, but now hung off him in loose folds. The man inside it seemed almost swallowed by the fabric. He was thinner than Dean expected, more fragile than rumors had suggested. For a brief moment, the two men simply looked at each other. Dean saw what everyone else had seen: illness, weight loss, time running short. But he also saw the friend beneath it all, the stubborn man, the fighter, the Duke. And Wayne saw something in Dean's eyes, too. Not pity, recognition. Then Dean broke the silence. "Jesus, Duke, you look like hell. What happened? You stop eating beef?" The family froze. They couldn't believe what they had just heard. This was not how people were supposed to speak to a dying man. You were meant to be gentle, encouraging, careful. Wayne stared at him for a long second. Then his face cracked into a grin, and he exploded with laughter. Deep, genuine laughter that filled the room. "Screw you, Dean," he said between breaths. "I'll still kick your ass like this." "With what?" Dean fired back. "Those toothpick legs? I've seen stronger sticks holding up tomato plants." Wayne laughed even harder. "Get over here, you bastard." Dean crossed the room and sat beside him. Not too close, not hovering, not treating him like glass. Just sitting there the way they had on movie sets, in restaurants, backstage lounges, and late-night conversations for 20 years. And for the next 2 hours, Dean Martin gave John Wayne the greatest gift anyone had offered him in months: normalcy. Dean never asked how he felt. He never mentioned cancer. He didn't bring up doctors, surgeries, treatments, or timelines. He said nothing that acknowledged death was waiting nearby. Instead, he talked the way friends talk. He told Duke about a singer he'd seen in Las Vegas who was so bad he couldn't hit a note if his life depended on it. He shared gossip about which glamorous Hollywood marriages were secretly collapsing behind closed doors. He mocked younger actors who had talent but no idea how to carry themselves on camera. Wayne listened, smiling more than he had in weeks. Every so often, he jumped in with a sharp remark or one of his own stories. His voice still lacked its old strength, but the spirit behind it was unmistakable. For those 2 hours, the sickness moved to the background. There was no patient in that room, no legend being mourned, no man counting his final days. There were only 2 old friends talking the way they always had. One refusing to surrender, the other refusing to let him disappear before his time. The conversation rolled on exactly the way it always had between them. They argued over which Western directors were truly worth a damn. Howard Hawks came up, and Dean casually declared him overrated. Duke nearly barked in protest, calling that opinion pure nonsense. A minute later, they were both laughing like no time had passed at all. Dean launched into a dirty joke about a cowboy and a showgirl, one Duke had probably heard years earlier, maybe even from Dean himself, but he laughed anyway. Wayne tried to answer with one of his own, only to break into a coughing fit halfway through the setup. The room tensed for a moment. Dean didn't. He simply waited, then jumped in and finished the joke for him, deliberately mangling the punchline. "That's not how it goes, you idiot," Duke snapped, smiling. Then the two of them argued over the correct way to tell a dirty joke as if it were a matter of national importance. At no point did the mood turn heavy. At no point did Dean let sorrow enter the room. There were no lowered eyes, no mournful pauses, no carefully chosen condolences. He treated John Wayne exactly as he always had, with irreverent humor, easy affection, and total acceptance. Wayne's daughter watched from the doorway for part of the visit. Years later, she remembered it clearly. She said she saw her father laugh more in those 2 hours with Dean than he had in the previous 2 months. Dean wasn't cautious with him. He wasn't delicate. He wasn't trying to manage a tragedy. He was just Dean. And that was exactly what Duke needed. After nearly 2 hours, Dean rose from his chair and brushed off his jacket. "All right, Duke, I gotta get going. I've got a thing." "A thing?" Wayne asked, amused. "What kind of thing?" "The kind where I do things. None of your business." Duke laughed again. "Get out of here, you bum." Dean started toward the door. Then, just before leaving, he stopped and turned back. For the first time that afternoon, the cool mask slipped. His eyes met Duke's, and in that brief silence, there was everything he had not said out loud: recognition, loyalty, gratitude, grief. "Duke," Dean said quietly. "Yeah?" Wayne answered. There were 100 things Dean Martin could have said in that moment. "I'm going to miss you. I hate that this is happening. Thank you for years of friendship. You were one of the best men I ever knew." But Dean understood something profound. Saying those words would change the entire meaning of the visit. It would turn friendship into farewell. It would break the illusion they had carefully protected for 2 precious hours. It would force Duke to become a dying man again. And Dean would not do that to him. So instead, he shrugged and said, "Try to eat something, would you? You're making the rest of us look fat." Wayne grinned. "Get out of here before I throw something at you." Dean nodded once, walked out the door, got into his car, and drove away. He never saw John Wayne alive again. On June 11, 1979, just 2 months after that visit, John Wayne died. The cancer had finally taken what pride and stubbornness had fought so hard to keep. His final weeks were painful. He drifted in and out of consciousness as family remained close by his side. Across Hollywood, the news landed like the end of an era. At Wayne's funeral, Dean Martin served as one of the pallbearers. Beside him stood other giants of the age, including Frank Sinatra and James Stewart, carrying the casket of one of the most iconic actors who ever lived. Sometime afterward, Dean was asked about that final visit. "Did you know it would be the last time you'd see him?" Dean was quiet for a moment. "Yeah," he said. "I knew." "Did you say goodbye?" "No." "Why not?" Dean looked away, eyes distant, as if replaying the afternoon in his mind. "Because Duke didn't need goodbye," he said. "He needed to be treated like he was still Duke, like he was still here. Saying goodbye would have meant admitting he was leaving, and he wasn't ready for that." "Do you regret not saying it?" Dean considered the question. "No," he finally answered. "Duke knew how I felt. We didn't need words." Then he added the part that explained everything. "What he needed from me was for me to be his friend, not his mourner. So that's what I was." Years later, Duke's daughter, Asa Wayne, reflected on Dean Martin's final visit in her memoir. Of all the memories she carried from those painful last months, That afternoon remained one of the clearest and most meaningful. She wrote that Dean Martin's visit was one of the most loving things she had ever witnessed. By then, many people had come to see her father. Friends, colleagues, admirers, old companions from decades in Hollywood. Most arrived with good intentions. They came to say goodbye. They came to tell Duke what he had meant to them. They came to cry, hug him, and seek some kind of emotional peace before it was too late. And John Wayne appreciated every one of them. He knew they cared. He understood the love behind the tears. But it was exhausting. Every solemn conversation reminded him that he was dying. Every trembling embrace confirmed that others were already grieving him while he was still alive. Every emotional farewell pushed him further away from the identity he had fought his whole life to protect. Dean didn't do any of that. Dean came in and gave him 2 hours where he wasn't a dying man. He wasn't a patient. He wasn't a legend at the end of the road. He was simply Duke. 2 old friends sat together, joked, laughed, argued over nonsense, traded stories, and talked about things that didn't matter at all. And somehow, because those things didn't matter, they mattered more than anything else. Asa later said Dean gave her father something more valuable than a dramatic goodbye. He gave him dignity. He gave him normalcy. He gave him a few precious hours of feeling alive instead of feeling like he was already gone. After Dean left, Wayne reportedly turned to her with tears in his eyes, but he was smiling. "That's the first time in months," he said. "Someone treated me like a man instead of a patient." Those words reveal why the story has endured for so long. This was never just a tale about 2 Hollywood giants sharing one final laugh. It was about what love truly looks like when someone is dying. Many people visit the terminally ill carrying kindness, but also carrying their own needs. They want closure. They want to say what they never said. They want to ease guilt, make peace, or avoid future regret. None of that is wrong. It is deeply human. But sometimes those needs belong more to the visitor than the person in the bed. Dean Martin understood that. He did not come to unburden himself. He came to serve his friend. He came to give Duke what Duke needed, not what Dean needed. And what Duke needed was not tears, not speeches, not a ceremonial farewell. He needed to feel like himself one last time. That is real friendship. Real friendship is not making someone else's final chapter about your emotions. It is asking silently and honestly what they need most, and giving that even when it costs you your own goodbye. Dean could have walked into that house and cried. He could have told Wayne how much their years together meant. He could have embraced him and said every noble word people imagine should be spoken at the end. Wayne would have understood. He may even have appreciated it. But Dean knew Duke had already heard all of that from everyone else. What he had not received, what he desperately needed, was one person willing to ignore the illness and speak to the man still inside it. So Dean gave him that gift. And in doing so, he may have shown more compassion than anyone else during Wayne's final days. When Dean Martin died in 1995, those close to him often described a man who rarely made grand speeches about loyalty or friendship. He believed such things were proven quietly through presence, timing, and instinct. You showed up when it mattered. You lightened the room when everyone else made it heavy. You knew when words were useful and when they were selfish. That final visit to Duke captured that philosophy perfectly. Dean Martin didn't give John Wayne a goodbye. He gave him something better. He gave him one last afternoon of being alive. Years after both men were gone, Deanna Martin spoke about her father's beliefs on death, friendship, and how people should be treated when life is slipping away. She said her father believed that when someone is dying, one of the kindest things you can do is not make them feel like they are dying every second you are with them. Don't make their illness the center of every conversation. Don't speak in mournful whispers. Don't treat them like they are made of glass. Treat them like they are still the person they have always been. because inside, that is usually exactly who they still are, even when the body is failing them. That was what Dean Martin did for John Wayne. He did not ignore reality. He acknowledged it the only way Dean Martin knew how, with humor. He joked about how thin Duke had become. He teased him about how rough he looked. But he never let the sickness become the whole story. He moved past it and simply spent time with his friend. And sometimes that is the greatest gift you can offer someone at the end of life. The gift of still being seen as alive. The lesson of Dean Martin's final visit to John Wayne is not really about death. It is about dignity. It is about looking past the disease and recognizing the person still standing underneath it. It is about understanding what someone truly needs instead of giving them what you assume they should need. John Wayne was dying. Everyone knew it. The world could see it. Hollywood could feel it. But for 2 precious hours on that afternoon in 1979, Dean Martin made sure Duke was not a dying man. He was just Duke, still tough, still stubborn, still sharp-tongued, still laughing. And when Wayne passed away 2 months later, one of his final warm memories was likely that afternoon in his living room, trading insults and dirty jokes with Dean Martin the same way they once had on the set of Rio Bravo 20 years earlier. That is friendship. That is love. That is who Dean Martin really was. Not just the smooth singer, not only the king of cool, but a man wise enough to know that sometimes the greatest kindness is to treat someone exactly as you always have, even when everything around them has changed. John Wayne died knowing that at least one person still saw him not as a patient, not as a fading legend, but as Duke. And maybe in the end that mattered more than any goodbye ever could. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more unforgettable stories from Hollywood's golden era, and we'll see you in the next video.